there, Mandy Friedman here, licensed professional clinical counselor, clinically certified domestic violence counselor, clinically certified trauma professional, the creator of SNAP, survivors of narcissistic and abusive personalities with my brother, Andrew. We're talking about Succession, season 4, episode 6.
Mandy, this episode is called Living Plus. What does Living Plus mean to you?
Well, what it would mean to me is, I guess, living forever, right?
It's more than regular living, and that's what we all want, right?
Right.
The episode opens with Kendall watching outtakes from a commercial for Living Plus. Now, Living Plus is like a gated community type of thing that is often described in the show as land cruises. So it's like cruises, but it's on the land. Logan recorded a few commercials for this before he died, and Ken's watching the outtakes. Logan's able to abuse his children even after he's dead.
As they're watching the video, you see the difference between Logan as he's saying the lines for the advertisement and then his true self, what he's really like. The person who is directing him is asking him to do it again, but sound nicer, and is, dabbing his face. And I mean, you just see that he's getting more and more pissed off. And at a certain point, he says, "Stop buzzing around me," like he has said to Shiv in the past. "Stop buzzing in my ear. You remind me of my idiot kids." And someone in the room is like, "Ooh, Kendall, maybe we should turn this off." And he's like, "Oh, no, that's a Valentine's Day card. Like, good to see you, Dad." He's not really offended by the abusive stuff and is actually kind of enjoying watching his dad.
We move on, and Shiv is on a plane on a tarmac, and she's waiting to refuel and take off because they're all going to LA for Investor Day, where they're going to pitch this idea for Living Plus. Mattson just happens to be on the same tarmac, and Shiv pulls a little power move on him.
She makes him come to her jet. They both have their PJs, but he has to leave his PJ to come to her PJ, and you see him kind of walk across with bare feet, which I think is cool to show him that way. But you can see he's being like a very nice version of himself. He's being kind of flirtatious with Shiv, and he's trying to get information from her and find out what's going on.
He straight up asks her to be his mole, and she acts like she's not going to help him, but she's also considering it at the same time. We have a big meeting in LA where the kids meet with Tom and the Sharks. And Ken is abusive to his sister in a way that's really obvious to her, but not so much everybody else.
Shiv already had her seat at the table. She had her things there and then got up to do something and then came back, and Kendall took her seat at the table. And she had to take her stuff and move down somewhere else. But, metaphoric there of what they're trying to do to her right now by tanking the deal with Gojo and trying to sabotage in a way that is them taking her seat at the table. So we have a lot of those kinds of the imagery going on and symbolism.
Roman and Kendall lie to everybody. Now, Shiv has just talked to Mattson, and Mattson told her the story of what her brothers acted like on the top of the mountain. Now, he said that both of them went crazy, which is not what happened. It was just Roman. But in this meeting, Roman and Ken lie and say that Mattson went crazy and he's the crazy person. And we get a just fantastic example of classic gaslighting.
We have classic gaslighting going on, but we also have what I call fictional triangulation as well. These are strategies used by narcissistic abusers. The gaslighting is Shiv knows what's going on. She's saying, "I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing." And they're like, "No, we're not. No, we're not." And that's the gaslighting part, is that she's trying to say, "I see what's happening. I see the truth," and they're denying the truth until she really says, "You boys are not good at this. I know what you're doing. Look me in the eye, look me in the face, and lie to me." And then at that point, they do further gaslighting by saying, "Oh, we were trying to help you. We're trying to keep you clean. That's why we didn't include you, because we're going to need you, but we need you to be, clear of all of this dirty work." So just further gaslighting. But the fictional triangulation, or triangulation in general, used by narcissistic abusers, is when you pull in a third party or a third entity as a way of making your point or persuading or controlling someone. And that's when somebody might make up a story about someone else. I call that fictional triangulation. You say that someone said something that they didn't say as a way to convince or persuade or control someone. So they're saying that something happened that didn't happen, which is also gaslighting, but by pulling in that third party and saying that, look, Mattson was acting crazy and he's unhinged. And do we really want him to be, you know, like the face of this place? Or and then you see that the executives are like, well, you know, he's a genius. I'm sure that people will get over it. You know, they want for the deal to go through. So they're not really hearing what Kendall and Roman are trying to convey. They're like, it'll be fine.
Now, all this upsets Shiv quite a bit, because not only did she get her seat taken literally, but she's metaphorically getting her seat taken, and everything is not going well for her. And she's kind of having to work outside the lines. So Tom checks on her. Now, this is a strange situation, Mandy, but there's actually some therapeutical kind of like reason going on here. Tell me about the situation with Shiv. What is she doing when Tom comes into the room?
Well, we see that she has reserved a room in an office building. There are common areas that have to be reserved for meetings and such. So you assume she's going in there. I think she's just crying because of what just happened, confronting her brothers, and they admitted what they were doing. So she knows she's getting cut out, and you see her getting tearful and crying in this room. And then Tom walks in and she's like, I have this room reserved. And as it turns out, she has been scheduling her crying and grieving. And, Tom realizes that and kind of pokes fun a little bit. I feel like this is actually a really good strategy for Shiv. And if I was Shiv's therapist, I would definitely suggest it. And for anybody else who's going through something difficult, but they also have to function. That's the thing, is that she and the boys want to keep going and functioning. So they're just avoiding their emotions and what's really going on so that they can keep going. To stop and feel your feelings means that you'd be out of the race. And she wants to keep going. So in order to function and grieve, function and feel your feelings, there's a way that you can sort of allow yourself to cry or allow yourself to grieve, but on your terms and in ways that are that fit into your life a little bit more. And sometimes that can cut down on those waves that hit where you're not expecting it. Think of it like a tea kettle. You kind of have to let some of the pressure out from time to time. Otherwise, it's going to blow up.
Tom interrupts that, but he's welcomed. And he comforts her, and they end up kissing, and it's very sweet.
It is very sweet. And that's one of the most tender moments in the entire show. And it's going to be Tom, who is the kind one, who has the emotional intelligence. You know, it would be Tom that would be in that moment. And so it's really perfect. Shortly after that, the tone changes. You know, they have that kiss, they have that like authentic, intimate, actual intimacy moment together. From there, we see their relationship kind of take a different turn this episode.
Next, we're going to move on to Roman. Roman has a meeting with Joy, who is one of the studio heads, I believe, or in charge of the movie division of Royco. And she's concerned about the right-leaning ATN and how that's going to like play with the people that she works with, and maybe that's not going to work. Roman doesn't care. He says he's going to turn on the money hose. And that doesn't faze her. She still wants an answer. So he reacts in a bad way.
Well, he starts by threatening her. And then she kind of scoffs and laughs when he says, you know, I could fire you. And she kind of was like, okay. They make stupid business moves all the time, but this time they're doing it on purpose. He's wanting to sink a bunch of money into these films that are terrible, I believe, because they're trying to raise the value of the company overall. Right. So that's one of the reasons why he's talking to her, is he's like, I'm going to turn on the money hose. And then when she scoffs at him, you can see that kind of triggers him a little bit. And he's like, you know, I could fire you. I could. I'm not saying I am, but maybe I should. I think I will. And then he does. Just like, yeah, that's what you do when you're in the middle of a delicate merger where, everyone's watching every little, tendency and all the waves of money and what things are worth and valued. Like, you just don't go around just randomly firing people. It's not a smart move. And so when she scoffs at him, it's because anybody who knows anything knows that would be a really stupid thing to do right now. And yet he does it.
Roman also is trying to be his father here. And when people don't respect him like they would his father, he gets very angry and he acts out, and he doesn't understand why he's doing it, and he doesn't understand why they aren't falling in line. Next, we have Ken preparing for his big Living Plus speech. So he and Roman are supposed to give the big pitch for this new, land cruise kind of thing. And it's very similar to another episode where we've seen Kendall planning something like this.
Too Much Birthday is one of them, where he is, trying to put together a production of sorts, and he's the center of attention. He's on the stage. We have like the crew who run the show, run the theater, and he's telling them that he wants like this whole set thing done. And they're like, you mean by tomorrow morning? And he's like, yeah. He wants clouds in the sky. He wants them to recreate one of the Living Plus modules actually on the stage so he can like walk through it and stuff. But it's the night before. And when they are saying things like, I don't know if we can do that, he's like, okay, new rule. No one's allowed to say no. It's just an interesting way to manipulate people in a fun way. Let's make this new rule. And then he says, all right, you shall thank me now for this amazing, and they're like, thank you for the new rule. And it's just awkward and cringy and difficult, and no one really knows what to do. But he is really starting to get revved up.
The way he acts towards this crew is how a king would act. It's absurd, and he thinks he's the king. And
they've had a king to model after all these years, but they still don't get it. They just know that that Logan has been scary, that people do what he says. They're afraid of him. And so they think that that's what you're supposed to do, is make people afraid of you. But Kendall does it in a more joking kind of way. When he's going to threaten you, he threatens you with a smile on his face. And therefore, he thinks he's probably more evolved, like that he's, more polished than Logan. But really, he's just more smirky and smarmy and slithery. It's not very impressive, but he does have his moments.
Well, and he doesn't have the experience. And that's the thing. And so he's the emperor with no clothes. There's a conversation going on, and Jerry walks in to the conversation and demands to speak with Roman. She calls him out for firing Joy, and he tries to Logan Roy her, and it doesn't work.
She's like chewing him out for firing Joy. Roman is pissed that she doesn't respect him, like we've said, but also that it hurts Roman that Jerry doesn't see the good in him anymore. There was that time when Jerry was his mentor, and they had like that thing, kind of playful thing going on. And now Jerry's got no love for him at all. And Roman can really feel that his ability to manipulate her has gone away. She's coming at him and is not afraid of him at all. And whatever he says, she's just like, she doesn't care. He says about firing Joy, that's something my dad would do. And she says, you are not your father. And that really gets him. And then he's like, okay, well, do you think you would be able to believe that I'm as good as he is? Remember back when you thought I had it in me to do this? Do you still believe that about me? And she says, to think it or believe it or to say it. Like, I might be able to say it, but I don't know if I actually believe it. And at that point, he fires Jerry for the second time.
I'm not 100% convinced that Jerry is fired in this moment, just because of the way that he put it was so vague, that it could have been taken either way. And that's one of like Roman's kind of like control dramas, is that he doesn't commit. He walks into Kendall and he wants to kind of like ask Kendall, like, what do you think of this?
Roman goes to Kendall for a sanity check. It's a pivotal moment for Roman in a way, because it's like he realizes there's something in him that wakes up and goes, oh, Ken is heading in a direction. He's not really stopping me from doing this. I know this is crazy. And Kendall's going, fuck it. Yeah, go ahead. Let's fire everybody while we're, and then I think that's when Roman sees in Ken that he is heading into a manic episode, and this whole production thing's starting to look familiar, because Kendall should tell him, actually, that's not really what we should be doing right now. He doesn't really add much sanity to the sanity check. And since there's no sanity that's added, Roman is a little more self-reflective now and realizing that he probably shouldn't have done that. He even says to Kendall something along the lines of, yeah, you might need to clean that up for me. Go clean up my mess. He realizes that he shouldn't have, but the reason that he realizes it is because he sees that him and Kendall have been kind of like feeding on each other through this whole sabotage plan. And now Kendall's kind of heading in a direction. And then Roman sees himself also kind of heading in this direction, but he doesn't, I don't know if he really wants to be heading to crazy town with Kendall.
Now let's get back to Shiv and Tom. So they've had that moment earlier. There was another moment where they were at the Hollywood mixer with all the investors and Hollywood types and whatnot, and they found each other there. And they have a very strange interaction. Tell me about the biting game.
Shiv is flirting with Tom now. And her version of flirting has to do with talking about him being attracted to other women. They have this strange relationship. It has a lot to do with pain and hurting each other. He's still in his mode of intimacy from their moment earlier together. He's not quite ready to joke around with her in that way. But he takes the opportunity and he says, I just want to apologize. I'm so sorry for fucking you up. Shiv is like, don't flatter yourself. She's like, you've hardly scratched the surface. I was fucked up long before I met you. And then she's like, want to play bitey? The bitey game? And he's like, what? She says, yeah, it's where you bite each other and then the first person to let go loses. And he's like, sure. And they do it, and they look in each other's eyes and they bite each other's arms. And this is a game, I guess, she hasn't played with him before. And she's basically saying, like, I've got lots of more crazy for you to see. You don't even know all the crazy that we have going on here. But this is their way of kind of rekindling the relationship a little bit. You can just see them in each scene. They're getting a little bit closer together.
And we joined them the next morning, and they got it on. And this is a great scene because Matsson calls during the scene or is texting with Shiv, and that makes Tom a little bit jealous. But he's also like joined Shiv's team in this moment a little bit, right? Tom talks about materialism and how they have that in common. And this is a great conversation.
He admits to Shiv, he says, before I met you and as I met you, I have to admit that what I've been thinking a lot about is money and how to have lots of it and how to keep it. And I like nice things. He recognizes that she is leveraging all of her power that she possibly can to manage her own position, much like he is. That her talking to Matsson and kind of keeping Matsson over here on a little bit of a leash is impressive in a way that, he sees what she's doing. She wants to make sure that she rises to the top no matter which way things go. And that's smart of her. Then Shiv confirms that she too is also prioritizing that. She wants money. She wants fine things. She wants the position and the status as well. And then she makes a comment to him about love. Like, it turns out we do love each other. But really what they're saying is that they both have the same goals and they both want the same things. And that love means money. Love means status and privilege and success. And since this is what we both want, and almost like, why even pretend anymore that this is about that we love each other? Mm-hmm. Why even pretend? Instead, let's just be who we are and use each other to get where we want to go. And that's romantic. They drop the pretense. But one of the things that Tom said to her is that you Shiv, you've always been aligning with your brothers trying to fuck over your father. And he would have to walk the line of, do I side with Shiv or do I side with Logan? And he's sharing this with her, that, you know, he's always had to kind of walk that line of both sides. And now that he sees that they're on the same side, truly, that has changed things for them.
We haven't talked about Greg much this season. Greg has a couple amazing scenes in this episode. One where he's in charge of a video editing project, and the editor gives him a little pushback, and Greg gets a little Mr. Snippy Snip with him.
They're editing Logan using those clips from when he was talking about Living Plus, but they're trying to make Logan say something that he didn't actually say. We know Kendall put Greg up to this. We also learned that no one else knows. You know, there's a moment where Greg sees it happening and is acting surprised when he is the one that engineered and made it happen. But the guy who's the editor kept saying, like, yeah, but I don't know if I can do that. And Greg's like, well, you can do that. And he's like, yeah, but I don't know if I can. He's like, but you can and you will. And he does. And the guy reanimates Logan. It's creepy, impressive, sick, and I don't know, pretty fucked up.
Kendall's using the memories of his father and what's left of his father to just promote himself and himself alone, pretty much. And it is wild. For
once, they can control their father. For once,
that's a good
point. They can make Logan do what they want him to do. And I think that that's probably part of it as well. Like, he's been tamed.
He never said he loved me when he was alive. I'm going to make him say that now that he's dead, you know, that kind of thing. Kendall's going to live this fantasy on stage, you know. But before that, he talks numbers with an egghead accountant guy. We kind of see what he's trying to do. He's trying to cook the books, is what's going on. So he is trying to elevate the price and the worth of the company so that Madsen can't afford it, but he's doing it in a shady way. And that's what this scene is about. Shiv has a video call with Madsen, and Tom's in the room. He's sitting in a chair like this, kind of watching, and she has got two guys on the hook at the same time. It is awesome.
And Tom is not jealous. Tom is kind of impressed and is cheering her on. And, you know, he's happy that he's in the center of things right here. He's right next to the power move, which is Madsen. And if things go the way that the executives want things to go, then, you know, Tom's going to do well. So he's making sure he's in the right position yet again. And I think he's happy that that position also puts him right back with Shiv. He did not see this coming.
Now we have a scene where it's in the theater where we're going to have our big show. Kendall is arguing with the workers because it's not exactly how he wanted it. And now he has to rethink things. We have Roman in the crowd sitting there just, you know, alone in the seats going over notes. And he's deciding whether he wants to go to Crazy Town or not. He's sitting there and he gets a little advice from Shiv.
Yeah, Shiv is starting to put seeds in Roman's head, and she sees what's going on too. She sees that Kendall is doing his thing where he's kind of revving up with this manic episode, and she tells Roman, we need to stop him. This is not good. He's going to take us all down with him. Like, we've got to stop him. Well, Roman can't quite stop him. He's not that powerful, nor does he have that kind of courage to stand up to Kendall. But instead, he goes into the dressing room, and Kendall wants them to wear these like flight jackets, like that they're pilots. And he's like, it's okay, we'll just do like unplugged, you know, just the two of us. And so now we have a little bit more gaslighting where Roman is saying that the reason why he's bowing out is because he won't be able to represent well. He wants for Kendall to really bring this home, but if he's involved, it may not happen. You know, I'm not good at these things. But really, he's saying you're on your own, Kendall.
Kendall's happy about this, though. He's like, great, all the attention's going to go on me, and we get showtime. Kendall's out. He has his flight jacket on, which also reminds me of the George Bush, like, mission accomplished thing, you know, but it's also launch is the idea, but it really kind of reminds you of that. So it's very strange. Ken interacts with a video version of his dead father, And this is what Greg was secretly working on with the editor. And it's funny when Greg sees it, he goes, man, the editing is fantastic on this. That's what he says. Ken gives a killer pitch, but it's very strange.
Kendall does a really good job because he seems like he's genuinely having emotions about his dad there for a few minutes. He's trying to be positive and talking about the future. And he, he's a little bit funny here and there. He gives a good, rousing talk about this living plus. In the meantime, people are starting to recognize that this is something that Shiv has called work camp for grannies. That really what we're talking about is warehousing older people in a way that they're monitored. They're calling it secure. Mm-hmm. And, that there's health monitoring and all these things. But actually, you could see where people would lose their ability to make decisions for themselves, and that they're in these little modular retirement things. He talks about how there's going to be fun. They're going to have theater and movies and games, and, they're going to make life amazing. So you're going to be safe and you're going to have a good time. But other people have a different view of it, that it looks like it's kind of like a dystopian future that's actually kind of scary.
Shiv has a plan. She went to Roman to try to stop this, and Roman didn't stop it other than to remove himself from the situation. So she reaches out to Mattson and says, maybe we need to stop this somehow, or she wants him to screw with this somehow. And this is when he tweets out something, offensive to Kendall.
What he tweets is a propaganda phrase that was used by the Nazis during the Holocaust as they were moving people to work camps, which were the concentration camps. The phrase is in German, but the translation is "work sets you free." And so that's a phrase and now a saying that is representing how the concentration camps came to be and what was used to get people to go to them. It's extreme, it's ugly, it's uncomfortable. And, Mattson is this genius level guy who is thinking in like the stratosphere level. But Shiv realizes that maybe he's gone a little too
It's also not accurate at all. It's not close to accurate.
It's not what's happening. It's not what they're trying to do. But you see, Mattson is trying to tank the tank. He's trying to sabotage the sabotage. And that's the game we're playing now is, he sees what they're doing and he's trying to affect it in some way, but he's not really good at it. And when Shiv tells him to back off, he deletes the tweet.
But Kendall is asked about this. Someone raises their hand, asks a question, and says, what do you think about this tweet that Mattson sent? And Kendall kind of peters out a little bit, but he comes off great. And the whole thing comes off great. And it's one of these moments where Kendall is on cloud nine. And, we know what happens when he gets up to cloud nine. So now we're going to kind of catch up with everybody at the end of the episode. Shiv is with Tom. They're in a car driving away together. Roman is also writing, but it turns out that Greg wasn't just working on one video to edit. There was a second video that was made for Roman's benefit. It is a video where Logan Roy is made to say offensive things about Roman, but Roman's watching it over and over and over again in the back of the car. Oh.
Yeah, well, these kids associate love with pain. At the beginning of the episode, we see that Kendall is watching his dad, be himself and say, you're worse than my fucking idiot kids. And, he's like, oh, it's no big deal. That's just, a Valentine's Day card from my dad. And he's talking to his reanimated version of him while he's giving his sales pitch. And then we see Roman listening and seeming emotional while his dad is saying that he has a micro dick. What's not funny is that all three kids demonstrated in this episode, including Shiv, that love means pain. That when you love someone that you're supposed to hurt them, and that's what bonds you is that nastiness with each other. And they don't know how to love any other way than to be harmful and cruel and mean to each other. Hence the bitey game. bringing Tom and Shiv back together as they bite each other. But yeah, it's sad to see that Roman is missing his dad and that he finds comfort in the abusive aspects of his father's personality, much like Kendall did as well.
Kendall is coming off this big win. His plan's working, and shit's about to explode. So what do we got to do? We got to get Kendall near some large body of water. And so he goes swimming in the ocean. And usually when water is involved, something bad's coming for him. So I love that symbolism. It's like he's free, but free in that way of someone who's off their meds is free. So
yeah, he goes and he dives into the surf, and then he winds up over the crest, and he's just floating there. And you can tell he's feeling really good, but we remember all the scenes with water related to him. And you're right, it usually has to do with him having a mental health episode of some sort. Maybe this was partially him getting in that mode. We see that he seemingly did well with the presentation. He seems to be successful in this moment. He believes he's been successful, but how much of this is him being symptomatic? And that's what's hard to tell. Is he having a manic episode, or is he really on it and nailing things and getting it right?
Mandy, we only have 4 episodes left of the show, and amazing stuff's going to happen. I really like this one a lot. We got a lot of great Kendall action and some, sad cringe from Roman, which is always classic stuff.
I'm looking forward to the next episode. And thank you for watching or listening. Bye-bye.